Today we're joined by Josh Ridinger, dynamic entrepreneur and co-owner of WashWorld Laundry, a growing chain of modern, eco-friendly laundromats serving Southwest Washington and Portland. Josh's journey with WashWorld began when he purchased the original Fourth Plane location in Vancouver, Washington, seeing not just a laundromat, but an opportunity to reimagine what neighborhood laundry could be. Since then, Josh has been the driving force behind WashWorld's expansion, adding 2 more thriving locations in Hazeldale, Vancouver, and East Portland, Oregon, each outfitted with high-efficiency Electrolux and Speed Queen equipment. It's a no-coin loyalty card system and a focus on customer convenience. Now with a 4th location under construction, Josh is continuing to scale the brand while staying grounded in values like sustainability, community service, and innovation. Whether it's incorporating washing and folding services or streamlining operations with smart technology, Josh is helping transform the traditional laundromat into a clean, affordable, and stress-free experience that meets modern expectations. A whole new laundry experience, faster, cleaner, safer. Thank you, Josh, for joining us.
Thank you. Glad to be here.
We're just going to open up with a couple questions and just kind of see where the conversation leads us. Walk us through how you came to purchase the original Fourth Plane location, and what did you see in that others might have missed?
Yeah, early on in my career, started out at Enterprise out of college, kind of teach you how to run a business. A little bit of that entrepreneurial spirit, worked in corporate America for a while, and finally came to the decision that doing something on my own was the path I wanted to go. I had an early career mentor that had moved back from the Midwest, a little east of Portland, and he decided to buy a laundromat right about the time I was entering grad school. And I thought he was nuts at the beginning, but as I'm going through this 2-year executive MBA cohort, I started to see some of the fruits of his labor and began to use the laundromat industry as the foundation or the basis for multiple projects throughout that 2-year period in grad school. And by the end of 2 years, I basically had a fully ready to go business plan to get into the industry that had been picked and prodded by not only my cohort, but a big group of professors and people involved with the program. And I came to the fruition. You asked how I got into the industry. There are basically 2 methods of entrance into the laundromat industry. You either buy an existing laundromat or you build one from the ground up. Option 2 is usually more expensive to get off the ground. So I initially started looking for laundromats. I literally canvassed Portland and within a 30-40 mile radius and left my card number and said, are you interested in selling, to about 100 different stores. I got a phone call back. One thing led to another. About 90 days later, I had purchased a laundromat.
Okay. So did you buy the brand WashWorld, or did you buy the location and created the brand WashWorld?
Very good question. The existing laundromat, which is the only one that I've ever bought in regards to an existing laundromat, it was called WashWorld, so we have carried it forward.
Buying a business like a laundromat, car wash, what else is in there? Apartment buildings, storage units. These are all the ones that everybody talks about online. They've become super trendy.
Yep.
But it sounds like you got into it before it was trendy.
Yeah, I mean, the trend continues to grow. And I think there's a couple different reasons as to why. I think a majority of those industries or business, ventures are, for the most part, pretty recession resistant. I think that's one of the reasons that really drew me to the laundromat industry is there was an article in the Wall Street, I can't remember the date it was purchased, but it literally had a half-page article about the top 10 most recession-resistant industries over the last 50 years. Number 2 was beer and alcohol sales, insurance was in there, funeral homes, garbage, commercial real estate. The funny thing, I mean, that's stuff that would make sense to you, yeah, right? But the biggest gap was between 1 and 2. And while 2 through 10 made a lot of sense to me, coin laundry being number 1 made 0 sense to me.
Right.
So again, part of this whole MBA cohort is I was kind of intrigued a little bit. And so I was going to dig a little deeper, especially since my buddy had just bought and opened one. So yeah. as to the reason, as to the why, it's pretty good passive income and being recession resistant. Not that everything's a guarantee, but it's pretty much in a good spot to be successful if run properly.
So you hit on a key term there that gets thrown around a lot. Passive income.
Yeah.
Is it really passive income? Like you just sit and collect a check, or do you have to work day to day to make sure it keeps operating? Like what's your involvement in that?
Okay. Good question. Is it able to be passive? Yes. Can you make it passive times 3? Yes. Can you make it passive times 5? Yes. Depends on how involved you want to be as an owner. Some people that are looking for passive income want to invest X amount of dollars and get Y back. Some other people want to invest X amount of dollars and buy themselves a job, and all they're trying to do is support their, X amount of dollars per month that they need to live off of. And other people want to invest X and get 3X back. I would be over in this category, and so that was the approach that I took. And I'm sure we'll talk a little bit more about it, but as I started to design this business plan, it's like if you were to look at at WashWorld as a towel, how can I twist that towel and get every inch of moisture out of it? And so I think we do things a little differently than the typical laundromat industry does, and especially the perception of what a laundromat is or could be.
Absolutely. I know that's one thing that got me interested in it, just talking about it. Tell you that my wife isn't comfortable going to the laundromat options that she has here, and you explained the differences in that. And that was intriguing. So anytime anybody's doing anything different, it gets me a little excited. I want to learn more about it. All right. So, how do you? First, everybody sees these trending things online. Like online, all the information you get online, it's so fast, and it's all this stuff coming, and then they jump on the bandwagon. It's the same thing over and over again. And with that, people like to just say, oh, well, I've watched a bunch of videos. I know this is a good business to get into. And then they jump in head first without really doing anything. You had mentioned that you spent a period of time really looking into this. Like, how long did you say that was?
Probably a better part of 2 years while I was going through this MBA cohort program. I mean, it was an idea. That was the end goal. So again, during school, I wasn't necessarily working. I was just, a student, and then I'd have some free time during the day. And there's so much research we had in regards to your competition, the equipment, the distributors and manufacturers, the vendors that you're going to partner with, layouts, payment systems. I mean, anything and everything. I knew nothing about it. So before I was going to invest, again, a certain amount of money, I wanted to try and educate myself the best I could. So in that entrepreneurial, I'm going to jump into that bucket. I think research and knowing certain level of knowledge, not only the industry, the business model you want to run, what's your competition, what's your customer base look like. I mean, learning as much as you can up front before you commit to that is extremely important.
Yeah, you got to build that foundation. I know that jumping into things, sure, I can figure it out trial by fire.
Yeah.
But what happens is I end up focusing on the stuff that I should already know, and the rest of the business falls apart. And once I learn the basis, now I'm playing catch up on everything else for the next 5 years.
100%. Right? Yeah. I mean, I think social media, as good as it is, that's kind of the bad side of social media, because all you see is the end result. Like, they show you and I one day writing a check for X, and then the next day they show us cashing a check for Y, but they don't realize what has happened before X even occurs, or between X and Y. And for every, success, there are some failures, so and you don't get to see that. So everything looks great, and everything's always a positive outcome. And not that the laundromat industry fails, but you don't always win at the same rate that you do all the time. Like, you just don't. So, I mean, someone taught me early in my life that when you're an entrepreneur, you either win or you learn. Like, you never lose, because you're always gaining some sort of speck of knowledge or something that you can do better the next time and pivot or do whatever. So it's important to keep your eyes open and always be searching to do better. I mean, even to this day, we're about to open our 4th store. And we're always pressing, we've learned all these things mostly the hard way, but we're always trying to like move the needle and do it better the next time.
I've learned so much more from my mistakes than my successes.
100%.
I mean, there's been a lot more failures than successes along the way, but like, it only takes one good one to
That's right.
take off.
That's what fuels the fire.
That's it. All right. So after you buy the first location and start implementing your business plan and your business model, at what point or how did you evaluate the potential for growth and expansion?
Yeah, so we bought the first business from this woman, and she gives us her internal financials. One of the things that I had learned that there's a pretty easy way to double check that. You get their water bills. You can, based off water consumption, you can back in, within reason, you can back into what the revenue should be. I immediately knew that the revenue on those financial statements was a little shorted. And it was all coins at that store, so that made sense. But, my plan was to buy this first store. I mean, we were on a little bit of a limited budget at that point. I mean, it was, this October will be 11 years. So about 6 months ago, we made our final payment on the equipment on WashWorld 1, which was a big milestone to hit. But, in regards to evaluating, we kind of said, okay, we're going to give ourselves 12 months. And so we bought it. We kept it open for 2 weeks. My business partner and I, both of our spouses, both of our cats, we were there pretty much every hour we were open. One of us was there just to let the customer base know, hey, look, we're going to be closing for 3 or 4 weeks, but we are coming back. So please come back, all those types of things. Closed down, remodeled. I mean, we basically took the entire leased space down to the studs and rebuilt it with all new equipment and kind of our business model. Open it up, had a couple customer appreciation days where it was free laundry for the entire weekend. If you want to see people lined up outside of a laundromat, if you're a laundromat owner, hold us one of those. They'll come out of the woodworks. But just kind of getting involved with the community. We blanketed the community with flyers and door tags and things like that. But really, I wanted to spend time in the laundromat and spend as much time with customers as I could, getting to know them getting to know me. We were also going to start hiring our first, team members. So it was a process that my business partner, who kept his day job, that, I was going to run the business and, kind of get as involved as we could. To somewhat protect our investment, but B, to your point of all we knew was the front end. We didn't know how the operations were going to go. So, started to befriend certain customers, and I'll tell one story, and this would summarize of when I was 100% convinced that we had done the right thing. So, I was usually there fairly early on Monday mornings, and these two women would come in weekly after about month 4. But they would come in every Monday morning. They were sisters, and sometimes they'd have 2 kids with them. Sometimes they'd have 6 kids with them, but they were sisters. One sister, Susan, had 6 kids, and her younger sister, Jamie, had 5. And I got to know them. I'd buy them coffee, whatever. Finally, one day I went up and asked, I was like, hey, Susan, do you mind if I ask why you come here? And she gives me this funny, perplexed look like, well, why do you want to know? And, well, I'm a new business owner and I'm just trying to learn and she literally cuts me off. I'm still friends with her to this day. She cuts me off. She was like, are you trying to tell me I don't look like a laundromat customer? And I started laughing. Same reaction. Actually, no, you don't. And so the behind the scenes that not everybody knows is, so once Susan drove an Escalade and Jamie drove an extended Denali. They both had a Louis V bag, kids' latest and greatest technology devices. I'm not a brain surgeon, but you could guesstimate their demographic level. So when I asked her that, she asked me, kind of laughed, and she goes, well, here's why. I, being Susan, has 2 washers and 2 dryers at her home. She is a stay-at-home mom of a Mormon family, and she basically told me that for all the hours that she does laundry in a week, because of all the social, educational, sporting events, all the stuff, by the time, with 2 washers and dryers, by the time she accomplishes pile A, piles B and C have already, started. And someone at their church had come home from a camping trip and happened to stop at WashWorld and had a great experience. And all of a sudden, they had told Susan and her sister Jeannie. So now, and continues to this day, they come in every Monday morning. They do not touch 1 ounce of laundry for the entire week. And they come in with their 2, 3, 4 enormous black Glad bags and come in and get all their laundry done for the week. And these are, I'm kind of regurgitating her words, but she said, you just bought me 10 to 12 to 15 hours a week. And within reason, I don't care what it costs. Mm-hmm. Now, compare to what my competition was charging, I was not gouging whatsoever. I was probably pretty flat from a total cost perspective. We can talk a little bit about the economics of how WashWorld works, but if she was going to go to my competition down the road and spend $100 a week, she's spending right around $100 at WashWorld. So it kind of led me to believe that A, our revenue was going up, but B, all of a sudden now here's this secondary and tertiary market that I would have never even thought that we would have as big of outcome as we had, that is all of a sudden there. So I kind of knew we were on the right path. We did, if I was to average the 4 years of financials I got from the previous owner, in year 1, we grew about 80%. So, being somewhat finance background, I knew we were on the right path at about month 6. Like I was just starting to see the revenue do this. We had to hire our first handful of employees, and the people just started to come in more and more and more, and then would return once, twice, 3 times a week. So we were on the right path. At that point, okay, it's time to start looking for another location.
It's awesome. I can totally get into that story. I had 5 kids at home myself with all of them in their activities. Like our washer and dryer never stops. It just never stops. So it's just constantly one load after another. And there's just not enough time to put it all away. There's not enough time to fold it all. And it's just,
Well, and home equipment, right? Home equipment, I mean, you can probably fit, you got to do 5, 6, 7 loads just in the wash in order to get through. You can come to WashWorld. Our biggest store is an 80-pound machine. You could fit 5 king-size comforters in one machine. Wow. So a lot of families will come in and they literally pile everything into one machine. It's washed in 22 minutes, and then you just got to wait for it to dry. And then the folding time, that's the X factor. But a lot of families can be in and out of there in 90 minutes and be done for the week.
We just upgraded to Speed Clean, which has been a huge time saver, but still nowhere near that efficiency. You just can't replicate that.
It's a size. It's a size perspective.
Yeah, absolutely. So one thing you talked about that we've been dealing with other customers on is, you said you come from a bit of a finance background, right? How important was that due diligence process in looking into the finances? You said you found some discrepancy. What we find is that people that don't have a finance background or haven't run a business before, they tend to just take the business over, jump into it, and start operating without making that clear cutoff of the finances or like really digging into them. And then they'll reach out to somebody like us, doing bookkeeping and due diligence stuff after they've already taken the business over.
Right. Yeah. Again, that's part of that research period. So I'll split it into 2 buckets. Thankfully, I'm finance, educated. If you are ever contemplating on buying a business and you're not super comfortable in the finance background, I would never do anything without getting some sort of outside perspective from people like you, or maybe someone in their circle of influence or whatever, someone that can read a P&L, that can question some things. But that's also part of your research period. Like I would go out and talk to a competitor and be like, within reason, most entrepreneurs are pretty open to sharing their success. So, Randy, you're in the widget business. I've done some of my own research, and in the widget business, most entrepreneurs make somewhere between 8 and 12% net income. Is that right? Have you experienced that? Most entrepreneurs, whether it's truthful or not, are going to confirm or deny if that range is correct. Well, if you hear it from 3 different people that 8 to 12 points on the margin is true, and you've got someone over here that's showing you 37 points, there's something going on. So, I would go that way. On the operational side, also by visiting your competition, you can kind of see how the flow works. you can see how are people getting from point A to point B, or how does the process work? What is the service like? And see some discrepancies. So I would evaluate both of those buckets kind of differently, finance and operations, before jumping in, because if you're going to jump in blind, your opportunity for success is not very high.
All right. So getting into a little bit about your kind of work-life balance, that thing that we're always all chasing, and I don't know that it fully exists, but we do our best. You balance a lot of stuff. You have a full-time job, running multiple WashWorld locations and other business ventures. Plus you have a family. We were just talking about, before the interview started, we were talking about your kid and sports and traveling and all that stuff. Like, how do you structure your time and how do you stay sane?
Good question. Probably the best and the worst trait that I was taught by my father was work ethic. It's been great for my career, but I think it's also been a little bit of a deterrent because I just do not know how to turn it off. Like, you're always, especially as an entrepreneur, and I'll throw this out to anybody thinking about opening their own business, it is impossible to turn it off. It just is. It doesn't matter. You can go on vacation. You can try to do this. You can try to do that. It's just impossible. It's a goal that no one will ever achieve. But how do you stay sane? I mean, I have one rule that my family comes first. So if it's anything involving my wife or my children, they take precedence. Like, I'm going to do nothing that will jeopardize some sort of family event, or if they need something, that will always come first. After that, I think it's being very dedicated and structured into when you're going to spend time doing certain things. Yes, I have a day job, so between typical business hours, 95% of those I'm going to be doing what's expected. I get up fairly early in the morning and I'll spend a few hours doing stuff for laundromats, and then I do a lot of stuff late at night, even after the kids go to bed. Weekends, I do the same thing. Early mornings, late at nights. I mean, you're always taking phone calls. Thankfully for my day job, I'm on the road a lot, so it does allow me some flexibility to make phone calls and do things like that. But I think it's being very, very structured and kind of living to that, especially if you're juggling certain things, and organization. So everybody has their own system. I don't think there's one that's any better than the other. All that matters is that you have a system, and to stick to it and be willing to pivot away from that system if things start getting missed. Delegation is also extremely important. So again, I ran the business. Store 3 opened right in the middle of COVID. Don't ever open a business in the middle of the pandemic. Point number one. But thankfully, everything has turned out great. But when I decided to move, we promoted kind of my right-hand person, the most tenured person that had been there. She had worked there for 7 years. She knew the business inside and out, outside of the finances. So operationally, she was a rock star. And we gave her the opportunity to kind of step up. And unfortunately, one thing led to another, and it just ended up not being the right decision. It probably wasn't the right decision for us as owners, and it wasn't the right decision for her personally. She struggled with employees. So we kind of had to bite the bullet and go out and hire someone. And I would encourage anybody, again, back to what I said earlier, it depends on what people are trying to get out of being an entrepreneur. If you're trying to buy yourself a job, then that's fine, and you can continue to run the business. That was never our goal. Our goal was to, let's invest X amount of dollars and then create some passive income out the back. So again, it's having that system, it's staying organized and not being afraid to delegate, especially when you hire people. And when you do hire people, you pay them well, because it is easier to overpay a little bit and keep them than it is to constantly be replacing people.
100%. We stand by that firmly. Investing in our employees here, like during COVID, when everybody else was investing all this money and throwing crazy bonuses at new hires, we did the opposite. Like, it's so much easier to get more production out of the people we already have.
Yeah.
So let's give them more bonuses to make sure they don't go leave for an extra $1 an hour.
100%.
Like, let's eliminate that. One thing I struggle with knowing, like, yeah, I have no off button either. And it got to the point where, like, my wife has banned me from watching Shark Tank. Not because, like, it's the ideas on there. It just gets gets
the
the
blood
gears
flowing.
moving.
Oh,
And I
yeah.
get excited, and then the next day I'll have 20 pitches ready to go, and it's
Yeah.
like she's like, "Oh, we can't do this anymore." But I struggle with knowing when I'm hitting my limit, and I'll usually go until I almost hit a crash point, and then I have to hide for a day. Do you have a better balance of that?
If I was still living in Oregon, I would say yes. Thankfully, I'm somewhat insulated. A lot of people have asked me, are you going to open any WashWorlds here? And why haven't you yet? I've been here a little over 4 years, and that's exactly the reason why. A, I did it for 7 or 8 years, and B, I knew if I start down that path here, I won't have an off button. So I'm somewhat using that as my barrier. I do talk to our general manager probably on a daily basis, at least 5 to 6 times a week. But that's kind of how I limit it. I mean, it's 3,300 miles away. Yes, I'm involved, but I can limit how much time I got to be in front of my laptop doing the books or reconciling or, negotiating purchases of a building or talking with our banker. Distance really, really helps me with that. If I was still in Oregon, I probably would give you 100% different answer.
Yeah. How hard of a choice was that to pack up and move, knowing you were leaving all that behind?
I'm born and raised in Portland, Oregon. It wasn't the easiest decision, but I would do it again tomorrow for the betterment of the family. My wife's family lives here. The boys were about to start school, and cost of living, schools, weather, traffic, you name it. I've enjoyed it way better here. Yes, I do miss my family and my social circle back on the West Coast, but there are not many things that would take me back there. Not many things.
Well, at least you have the opportunity to go back from time to time. I mean, that's a good thing. All right. What like systems, habits, mindsets help keep you or help keep all the plates spinning, and which one is the hardest to manage of all the things you do?
I think, again, I put family first, but I think that's the variable that I struggle with the most because it's always changing. Whether it's a specific season in sports or it's a school event or all the things that go, because I don't want to miss those. And so I wish they were a little more structured and they weren't always, we're going to go play over here today and we're playing over here tomorrow. Like it just changes. It seems like by the hour. So I think that's the toughest plate to juggle. And then having twins. So we have one kid that's playing soccer today and one kid that's swimming tonight. So it's like, okay, who's got who's going where? Okay, I'll see you tonight. And then you got to manage your day. Sometimes I get a little jealous of my wife just has to drive to the hospital and spend her day there. That's all she has to do is work within that little environment. And I'm going 16 different places and trying to, answer all the questions. There's positive and negatives in both, but what's the most hard? I mean, as positive as I say the distance and the time changes, sometimes that's an obstacle. If someone wants to get on a conference call at 5 or 6 o'clock West Coast time, sometimes it's a little more difficult. Where I'm up at 5:30, 6 a.m. East Coast, well, they're not up ready to have a conference call first thing. So, time change and distance, as good as it is, sometimes it's a negative thing as well.
So you've expanded WashWorld into 3 operational locations. The 4th one that you mentioned is under construction. How did each step of the growth challenge or refine your approach?
Yeah. So we bought the first store. It was an existing location. Looked really good. We were on a very minimalist budget. So my business partner and I hung all the drywall. We did all the painting. We did all the flooring. And 10 years later, you can tell. So as proud as I'm the most proud out of that store. It's our smallest store. It's about 3,000 square feet. It's our lowest revenue generating store. It's our smallest store, but I am the most proud because I had hundreds of hours of sweat equity into that place, and I still do. As we started to see the revenue grow, quarter after quarter, year after year, we realized that there was not a perpendicular relationship between square footage and revenue. So just because you had a bigger store, or whatever, didn't mean the revenue was necessarily going to follow the same path. What we realized is that by having more and more big machines for the same space as so let's say an 80-pound washer, I can make 6x the revenue of the same size of piece of equipment as a 20-pounder. So we kind of got out over our skis a little bit, and then WashWorld 2 is about 5,000 square feet. And it was a just vacated auto parts building, and it kind of checked all the boxes. Again, we didn't know what we didn't know, but it had really high ceilings, it had a concrete floor, lots of windows, easy in and out, tons of parking. And so we kind of, those were good variables. So we decided to sign a lease there, and it's 8 years later, and it is our best performing store. And it's in a demographic area that you would not expect to see a laundromat be as busy as it is. It's probably on the mid to upper mid demographic area, but it has a ton of population density. It does have a Walmart Supercenter right across the street, which I think helps, but it's got great visibility, tons of parking. It's easy to get in and out of there. It's just convenient. And so we saw that, and it's about 6 miles away from store number 1, so we did have some brand recognition. Vancouver is a smaller town across the river outside of Portland, suburb. But WashWorld did have some name recognition, which I think helped us. WashWorld 2 opened and ramped up fairly quickly, much faster than WashWorld 1 or even WashWorld 3 that we opened a few years later. So I think we learned that, bigger is always better. Because basically as a laundromat owner at the end of the day, and I think we talked about this when we first met, as a laundromat owner, all I really am is a utilities broker. I'm brokering utilities, water, sewer, power, through a piece of equipment to you and I as the end user consumer. So it's going to take me the same amount of investment to get enough water, sewer, power into the building. But if I can run 100 pieces of equipment versus 50, that's just 50 other revenue generators. So it's not perpendicular. So we decided and learned that, let's continue to press the envelope and get bigger. So store 1 is 3,000 square feet. Store 2 is 5,000 square feet. 3 is about 6. And store 4 is a 2-story building. It's a really unique, the ground level is about 5,000, but it has another 6,000 underneath that we're going to use in a different revenue generator to do a little commercial laundry and things like that, private access, all those types of things. So, we continue to try and come up with other ideas to, again, wind that towel and get every ounce of moisture out of it we can.
So you said bigger is better, but location 2 is your highest grossing compared to the next 2 that are larger. So it's not just bigger is better, it's location.
Yeah.
What makes the difference in that one?
I say that up till now 2 is our highest grossing. I think by the end of this calendar year, 3 will overtake number 2 because it's bigger. It's in a little bit lower of a demographic area. And again, we made a choice because of technology and what was offered from us from some of the manufacturers. But basically, so stores 1 and 2 are Electrolux. Speed Queen, like you mentioned, headquartered up in northern Wisconsin, had been after us to build a store with them. And their local representation had stayed very close to us. Anyways, they basically gave us an offer we couldn't refuse. From an equipment standpoint, the payment system we got for basically free. We were one of the first to market with this new system where a majority of the revenue came from app-based. So just like any of us would use an app to pay for something, you do the same thing at WashWorld 3. I love the idea because it's a lot less cash handling. It's a theft deterrent. All the things from my perspective, looking through my lens, 5 years later, it was probably a mistake. And if I could go back, I would not do that system. And there's a couple reasons as to why. Is that I'm looking at it as if I'm going to be there every day. It's a lower demographic area. There's a higher multicultural concentration in that area. Using a smartphone and an app is just not as widely used or accepted in that area as I would have thought. So we still have a lot of people that just want to come in and pay cash, which there's another option to do that. It's just not as quick and easy as using an app. So the app is also Wi-Fi based. So if you ever lose power or you lose your Wi-Fi signal, I mean, you're kind of dead in the water, whereas the other systems can continue to operate. So again, back to one of your points of kind of have to learn the hard way. And so WashWorld 4, I'm going back to the payment system on WashWorlds 1 and 2. But 3 will overtake in revenue. We opened right in the middle of COVID. So we got off to a little bit of a slow start, although we never had to close as an essential business, out on the West Coast. The thought process there of COVID was a little more distinct than I think here in North Carolina. But I think it just got us off to a slower start. Also, we were in East Portland, probably 20 miles as the crow flies away from WashWorld 1 and 2. So we're basically coming there as WashWorld, but we did not get the advantage of any brand recognition. We rebuilt 1, it was WashWorld. We built 2, 6 miles away. A lot of people in that community knew, but 3 was a ways away. So,
okay.
Yeah.
You keep talking about, wringing the towel, trying to get everything out of it. What are some other forms of revenue or other streams of revenue that fit into that same business model that you're?
Yeah, we've done a couple different things. The big push right now in the laundromat industry, which everybody has an opinion on, is pickup and delivery for wash, dry, and fold, or fluff and fold, what anybody calls it. There are some laundromat owners around the country that make as much or more on wash, dry, fold as they do as retail walk-in business. Same thing, they've come up with, bought a software program that will help manage drivers, and they literally just drive around the city and pick up and deliver. I think those are all great ideas. I'm not opposed to that. We tried it a little bit, and I'm not opposed to trying it again. The X factor in both of those ventures is the labor. You have to have people that are willing to wash, dry, and fold the labor. And if somehow you're lucky enough to find those people, then it becomes a collection. How do you collect the money? And B, how do you deal with the end user customer that's unhappy? Because they're always going to be unhappy. And we are lucky enough, compared to some of the other laundromat owners that I know in the Portland area or in the region, we do 98% of our revenue is walk-in retail. So I've always been on the belief that that washer can only wash so many times before you have to replace the piece of equipment. And what's the highest margin you can get? It's walk-in retail. I walk in, I do my laundry myself, and I walk out. It's the highest level of margin possible. So why would I want to take spins or turns away from that piece of equipment for a lower margin unless I have to? So we have, thankfully, our business model has done fairly well to have enough people walk in the door. Now we have pivoted in a couple different ways. So we got lucky to have someone from a nonprofit organization walk into one of our stores, and again, right in the heart of COVID, and said, hey, some of our constituency needs to wash their clothes. Could you help and donate laundry? And so we do kind of a revenue share where they invest X amount of dollars and I match it with some bonus dollars, but those are dollars that I was never going to get before. So yeah, I'm giving a little away on the back end. The cost of the utilities, just the fixed costs are getting spread out. But those are revenue dollars I was never going to get. And then we've also, to kind of backfill some of those wash, dry, fold, gone out and tried to find companies that do pickup and delivery on their own. They run all the business. They do all the pickup and delivery. They do all the processing of the laundry. All the customer interaction, all the stuff that I just told you that I didn't want to do, or I don't think it's as worth it. So you partner with somebody that does all of that. They just need a facility to wash it. So we have a couple, thankfully, that come in late at night and basically wash and fold throughout the night, and then they're gone in the morning before we open up for retail business. And I can keep those machines turning. It's great. So it doesn't affect our normal revenue stream, but it does add a little icing to the cake.
Okay. And then I believe you guys have vending as well. Or
Yeah.
how's that been getting into?
It's a necessary evil. I mean, we'll have a couple vending machines. We're selling sodas and snacks and, a candy bar and soap and, dryer sheets, those type of things. I mean, you don't do enough volume to where it moves the needle. Vending is probably the highest profit margin, but how many Snickers bars can you sell? It's just, you're just not going to sell very many of them. And it's kind of the necessary evil. Like, someone's going to be at your facility for an hour, hour and a half, it's nice to be able to offer something, I always get asked, like, well, why don't you open one of those that has like like Suds and Suds, where you serve beer, and that's a whole different set of challenges that I would never do. The first store that we bought, funny enough, we walked in there the first time we were walking through it, and it had a kids' play area. And it's still, it's kind of a joke now, Randy, to be honest with you, but at the point in time, my business partner's wife is like, oh yeah, we're going to keep that. I'm like, absolutely not. We are not a daycare. That's usable square feet that we can use for income. Again, it's twisting the talent. Yeah, but what are all these parents going to do when they bring their kids? But you know as well as I do today. Every kid's buried in their electronic device. I mean, they're not going to go play on this cheap plastic slide or something. Like, that's just not what kids do anymore. So, I think it's you got to have certain things there, but we limit it pretty conservatively.
Yeah, stuff like that though too. You start getting out of your realm, and then that's where the bad reviews start coming in. Like, it wasn't clean, it wasn't whatever, and that's how all those play areas are. But anything you can do to generate more revenue without adding employees or, taking up a lot of space or adding substantial overhead to achieve that, like, why not do it? Even if it's just convenience and it doesn't really move the needle.
Correct. Yeah. Perfect example. So our first store, I was like hell-bent on, okay, we're going to have 3, 4, 5 big TVs so that when you're sitting there, you could sit across and watch your favorite sporting event or whatever. We did it at 2. We did it at 3. We have learned the hard way in today's day and age that I don't care what channel that TV's on, it's going to offend or piss somebody off. And so now it's like, no, the TVs are off and all they do is stream music through the TV, so that people can have music. And so store number 4 that we're building out, there will be no TVs, and we've just put some speakers throughout to where the staff person can put it on a certain channel, and those channels will have to be chosen by our general manager, that, like, you're only allowed to put it on one of these 3 or 4 channels because, again, something in there is going to upset somebody. So it's a weird world when a business owner tries to make it convenient and comfortable and enjoyable. Thank you for coming to my place of business. Here's some, feature
Perk of some kind.
Yeah. But now you offer it to 10 people and it pisses 2 people off, and now you don't offer it at all. And so it's just, again, you learn and you try to do the best you can.
Not having an off switch, I tend to, and a lot of entrepreneurs I think do, I can succeed at anything. I just got to work a little bit harder. Like, how long did you give it with the full wash services before being like, all right, this is not a good option? Like, how'd you know that, all right, I'm putting forth enough effort to really try, but it's still just not the right option?
Yeah, I think you need to internalize that as you start to go down a new venture. I had moved. It was right when I was moving. We started to go down this path where we were going to do pickup and delivery. And it was through a third party. They were doing the marketing, the cash collection, customer interaction, all that. We would just process the laundry. And it's a very structured program. It's a franchise that you can involve with if you're a business owner. And so our old GM and I, we flew to Cincinnati and we went through their whole process, saw it. We tried it for 3, 4, 5, 6 months, 7 months. But I had moved. And so she was the one that was managing this process, trying to use our existing staff. She had tried to hire 1 or 2 extra people to help with all of this now added volume of wash, dry, fold. And I would just ask her, every couple of weeks, how's it going? Would you do this again? What would you do differently? So I think, to answer your question, if you're going to do some new venture, I think it's important to have some sort of short list, 2, 3, 4 KPIs that are measurable, that you can look back at any certain point in time and be honest. Okay, Here's what I thought it was going to be. Here's how I was going to judge it. Are we doing that? Yes or no? And then it's all about being honest, and you got to make a business decision. Again, I think in the laundromat world, the wash, dry, fold, I mean, it is a very spoken about topic. I mean, a couple of weeks I'm going down to this really large laundry convention in Orlando where, I mean, it's called the Clean Show, but they have like 3 or 4 breakouts literally focused on pickup and delivery and wash, dry, fold. Yeah, I might go to one of them just to see if some new idea sparks my mind, but I mean, we've tried it, and I don't think, the juice is worth the squeeze. And thankfully, we built our business based off a lot of walk-in and, retail. So I think it's just being honest. It's, okay, we're going to try it. What are your KPIs? And then you got to have some sort of review process. And my business partner has been passive for the most part with the business. So I have the luxury of saying, okay, Randy, here's my plan. We're trying this. It's always okay. Let's do it. And then I'll send him, okay, here are the KPIs and here's what I've seen. What do you think as an outsider looking in? And, it's good to get some maybe non-vested opinions of what they think of those KPIs, because they might look through a different lens than you are. You and I are invested. We're going to kind of tell ourselves, or it is successful when maybe it's not. So, yeah.
Who's your sounding board for whenever you're trying to decide what to go into, what not? I know, like, for me and my wife, amazing partner, has no entrepreneurial spirit at all, super supportive, always behind me and always honest with me, which helps. But like, if I'm talking about business decisions, like, she's not necessarily the sounding board that I go to. Like, do you have somebody that you utilize?
Yeah, I mean, everybody should have someone or a couple people that they can, pose questions to. My business partner is in the construction industry. I mean, him and I have been friends since the 2nd grade. But he's not necessarily as involved. Well, he's a little more involved now that I've moved, but historically he was extremely passive. So although him and I look at business the same way, in regards to invest in, invest out, it's not always the case, but I could always go to him. My banker, he was in my MBA cohort. He thought I was nuts to get in the laundromat industry. He's like, you're going to do what? Like, you understand what that business is all about, right? And I was like, yeah. And now fast forward, I was just out in Portland and we met up and had lunch, and it's to the point now where he's like, okay, you're ready to buy another building. Just let me know where and when and how much. Like, he has seen the growth and the evolution of what I thought WashWorld was going to be, this little minuscule tax haven that might pump out a little bit of passive income. And the passive income has grown, but it's also like, well, why are we going to stop? Let's continue to go. Now we're getting into real estate, and it's a whole new beast. So, but it's important to have that circle of influence that can kind of somewhat keep you grounded, that do not have a vested interest in it. You tell a story about your wife. My wife's a nurse, and she'll be the first one to tell you that she is, within reason, financially not very involved. Like, it's just like when we take the kids to any type of doctor's appointment or medical thing, I'm like, that's my medical advisor. Do you need me to get the car? Do I need to pay the bill? Like, what do I need to do? Because I have no idea what you're talking about. It's kind of the same thing when it comes to business. So I understand. Yeah. I think it's important to be very, very transparent and just keep them up to speed. Do you have any questions? I'm always an open book. And they're like, no, you're good. Just do your thing. And happy you, happy me. That's how it works. So.
Yeah, my wife, she's built an awesome career herself in the pharma industry, and she gets like almost offended when people assume that she works for me all the time or works with me. It's pretty funny to watch.
Yeah, funny story. She the only time that she might have not been 100% supportive is I just finished grad school, and we started searching for laundromats, and it took about 60 days. We had literally just signed the purchase agreement, signed the agreement that we were going to buy all this equipment, and it applied for our tenant improvement permit. I'm pregnant, and we're having twins. So that might have been the one time that she was like, yeah, I don't know if this is the right time, but everything's worked out well. So it's been great.
I have something similar. I was working at a builder and decided I was going to start our utility company.
Yeah.
And the day I went in and quit my job at the builder I was working for, it was my wife's first day back to work after maternity leave, having her 5th kid. And it was at a brand new company, like starting a whole new thing. And I was like, we had a bad morning. I was like, I'm quitting my job today. I'm starting a business. She's just like, no, you're not.
Yes, exactly.
And I sure did. And it's been, but you know, there was a lot more talks than that, but it was,
Yeah.
The other one was, you said, you know, don't buy a business during COVID or when something's crazy. It sounds like yours was a little better than mine. I decided to buy essentially a bottle shop during COVID that was all run down, tore up, when nobody was even allowed to go into a store.
Right.
I was like, why not buy one now?
Yeah.
But we're gonna get into the partnership stuff a little bit. I've struggled with partners in multiple businesses. I feel like it's something that people take lightly. They don't realize how much it is like a marriage. Like you're tied together financially and in so many ways. And it just seems like, oh, well, we're just doing this thing together. And then if it doesn't go right, like the way it ends is just so traumatic. But it sounds like you have a good partner. Like, can you tell us a little bit about the experience and like the good sides, the bad sides? Like,
yeah, I will. My first recommendation is if you're ever going to get into a partnership, I think both partners or all partners should literally have or go spend some time with an attorney of their own. And I don't say that to scare people, but you know, I'll allude a little bit onto my story. But I think, you know, you and I are buddies. We've been friends forever. Hey, let's go start building widgets, and here's how we're going to do it. Okay, everything's peachy keen and everything's great until it's not. And you don't know what you don't know when it comes to partnership agreements about how disputes are resolved and how buyouts occur and all those types of things. You just don't know. And I'll be the first one to say that when we bought WashWorld 1, it was just 2 of us. And I think I did it on LegalZoom. I can't really remember. It was 11 years ago. And that was like 7 partnership versions ago. So I don't really remember. But thankfully I got some advice. We had at least an attorney look it over. One of the things about growing in the laundromat industry is it's somewhat capital intensive because of how much tenant improvements it takes and how much equipment it takes to open a new laundromat. And yeah, you can borrow a majority of it, but you can't borrow all of it. So, you know, you can only go to the well so many times. And my original business partner and I, we kind of ran out of liquid funds. And so because we wanted to continue to grow and keep our foot on the pedal, we went out and found a couple partners, and we got up to 4, and one of them was a family member of mine, and it's not about blame at all, but I probably made the worst decision of my life for the right reason, trying to include a family member into this. And if I could go back and change anything in this whole WashWorld journey, that would be it. Not that I would want to exclude that person. It has literally cost me the relationship with that person. And that's just the sad truth. So I'm not saying that to scare people, but it's the honest truth. If you're going to get into a partnership, I could not encourage people enough to be, I don't care how close you are, if it's a family member, you have got to be 100% selfish and go out and get your own opinion, your own representation, and have them walk you through A to Z of what this partnership agreement means. And make sure that both parties know that if push comes to shove and the water gets a little rough, how disputes are going to be resolved and what that means. It has cost me, something that I don't know if I'll ever get back. And that's a sad story, but, it's time to move on, and I wish I could do it differently. So, yeah. Partnerships are difficult. I think they're helpful because I am not an operational person at all. I'm not super detail oriented. I'm a big picture thinker. I always want to be like 6 steps ahead. So our little partnership that we have works well because we all have a certain strength and we all know what lane we're in. But we've also experienced that kind of tension. And I can almost promise you that none of us want to go through that again. So we kind of have had to learn the hard way. And now our agreement is cut and dried. Like, okay, if someone wants out or there's a dispute, step A, step B, step C, this is how it's handled. And everybody's on board. Everybody knows how it works. And, hopefully you don't get to a legal situation like I was in before. So that would be my recommendation. Now, in every business, depending on funds and availability, that's not always possible. I would highly, highly encourage you not to get into a partnership agreement without spending some money. It's probably one of the most important things you could spend money on up front, in my opinion. If you can't, then you go to that same, consultant or circle of influence and say, okay, selfishly read through this. You're in business. Do you see anything in here that would, concern you? What questions should I ask? I mean, I would not start a business without being pretty diligent about what you're about to do.
I think, especially in the time like AI, you talk about using LegalZoom, but now everybody's using AI.
Yeah.
And you got, again, to the internet, you got people saying, oh, well, now I don't have to pay a lawyer. Now I don't have to pay this person, but there's certain things like, yeah, it's a great tool to research and do all that stuff. But when it comes to legal binding documents, like, you got to take that stuff very seriously. And you touched on a good point that a lot of people don't realize, like, if my attorney helps me draft documents and I hand it to you and you ask my attorney for, his feedback, he'll give you his feedback, but he's not working for you.
Yeah.
He's working for me. Even if you're paying him a little bit of money to help, like, go get your own attorney. And that's, again, that's something super important that you touched on.
Yeah, 100%.
So, and the other thing is like, getting a partner for the right reasons, not just because, hey, we're buddies. I bet we can be good partners together.
Right.
It's finding that balance is something that's super important as well. But I'll go back to, it's like a marriage, right? Most marriages end because of finances, and it's the same thing with partnership. You need to have that same financial compass, those same types of goals. Got to be open and honest with each other about what you're trying to achieve, and just make sure that everything lines up morally, mostly.
Correct.
And if that doesn't happen, then there's not much chance of success.
Well, and everybody can be on the same page in month 1, but by month 60, opinions or thoughts have changed, and goals have changed, and expectations have changed, and again, if that's not all outlined specifically in a partnership agreement, then there's too much gray area.
You talked about, staying in your lane. Like, how did you guys decide whose responsibilities are what?
I think,
like, did it evolve, or it's like, all right, this is what I'm going to be in charge of. This is what I'm going to be in charge of.
Yeah, I mean, originally I was in charge of everything for the most part, my original business partner. So then we have 3 total now. My original business partner, he was still working his day job, but a machine would break down or something. I mean, I that's not my thing. Like, I'm not very handy. I mean, I can try. I can call the tech line and say, okay, you need me to unplug this wire and unscrew this bolt. Yeah, I could probably handle that. Anything more than that, probably not going to work well with me. So those things would get pushed off to him, and he would tell you the same thing. He is not the finance guy. Like, he's just, I can tell you where every penny is for the most part in our business. He's like, yeah, well, we might have X amount of dollars in the bank. Maybe I'm just guessing. And it's a different strength. It's a different set of skills. And I think as that partnership agreement, or as you're thinking about going down this path, again, it's an honest conversation, because those points should funnel into that partnership agreement. Who's going to have what responsibilities? What responsibilities are 2 people or 3 people or 4 people going to share in? But what is in what person's bucket, and what are they committing to? And I think it's doing that up front. You can kind of outline those strengths, and then kind of decide who's going to do what. Thankfully, the 3 of us, we all have our own lane, and then we get together once a month and have a conference call, and okay, this is what's going on. Here's what's coming up next. Blah, 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 and then kind of move forward. So it's important to do that. But again, sometimes things change. You know,
Yeah.
I mean, I was running the business and I dropped the bomb on the two of them that, hey, I'm moving 3,500 miles away. And they're like, well, what are we going to do? And so again, it's just part of the conversation. So, yeah.
And then, like, having the same growth goals too, that's going to be important because I know like you guys have grown substantially just from, starting to where you are now, but like looking into the future, like what's the plans? Where are you guys heading from here?
Yeah, I mean, I think our next goal is to get to store number 10. A couple different things have slowed our growth. Our 4th store is about to open. We probably would have opened 2 or 3 more stores by now if 2 different things hadn't happened, COVID and a partnership dispute. But the benefit of that is that we were able to pay down a ton of debt in those times without taking it on anymore. So our cash flow position is in a much stronger point than if we would have. But our foot's on the gas. So, our goal is to open one. I'd say our goal is to open 3 stores every 2 years. So maybe 1 this year, 2 next, or 2 this year, 1 next. But that's kind of our goal, is that every 2 years to open up 3 new stores. Now, the caveat to that is we're to the point where dealing with landlords is not our most favorite thing to do. So unless it's absurdly inexpensive to lease, if we can't buy the building, we're not going to do it. So there's a limit to how quick we can open stuff, but we can find the right building at the right price in the right area to all those other points we talked about. But with the market softening a little bit, I mean, we feel pretty fortunate that we'll find some stuff and they continue to pop up. So,
Like, having your growth goals are important, but like hitting them is a whole other thing. And I see so many people like try and force it. You said you got slowed down by a couple things, and like I feel like I don't want to just breeze over like that fact. Like if it's not right, it's not right. And when you force things through, that's when they tend not to work out, or you run into more unforeseen issues. So that's just something that, I've learned while I've been doing this. I force stuff, and like usually when I do, it's no good and it fails. And when I do things the right way, things just seem to fall into place.
Yeah, so the first building that we were going to buy, the earnest money was supposed to go hard April 1st of 2020. 2 weeks after. I mean, it was just, so we asked the building owner, we're like, will you give us an extension? Which he did. I mean, he understood. We got a 6-month extension, but okay, great. So now we're to the end of September. Nobody was super comfortable about what was going on, what the outlook was, what the direction of us as a nation or the world was going to be. And he wouldn't give us another extension. And, there was just too much unknown. And so we said, okay, thanks, and pulled our earnest money back. And I mean, the building sat vacant for another 2.5 years, 3 years. We had another building right when I was moving that fully approved to get funding on, and it was unfortunately right in the heart of the dispute. We got down to the nitty gritty, and we just felt like adding another location while we're kind of in this period of unknown didn't make sense. We backed out of that. Then we were kind of learning how everything was going to work while I wasn't there. And so we had a leadership change of our general manager. And so we just kind of sat back and continued to, tighten the screws a little bit on what we could do operationally, and continue to pay down the debt. And now we're in a spot to grow pretty considerable pretty quickly. So it's as negative as we didn't grow too, faster. I think we're in a much better spot, especially financially. Now we can pretty much, within reason, grow as fast as we want as the opportunities come.
That's exciting.
Yeah.
It sounds like you guys are making good choices, and the timing really worked out for you. I guess, is there anything that you wish that somebody would have told you before you got into this business? Is there like that one magical thing that if I would have known this ahead of time, it could have changed our timeline or how we did things or anything?
Yeah, I mean, I don't know if it's industry specific or maybe it is, but I wish I would have, depending on finances, if we would have started to buy the real estate a lot earlier, that's probably the thing. I probably would have sacrificed opening a third store if I could have bought store number 2. And it's just, I mean, dealing with landlords, some are good, some are bad, but I mean, in the laundromat industry, as people are driving around, you're listening to this, or you're driving around in your community, I would challenge you to look. If you've lived in that community a long time and you see a laundromat, how long has that store been a laundromat? And I would bet people say that once a building or a space becomes a laundromat, it's going to be a laundromat for 20 or 30 years, 90% of the time. Laundromats, they might change hands, they don't close. And that's because of the investment that it takes to open a laundromat. So that being said, I'm going to a long answer, but that being said, if you're going to lease a space, I want control of the space for 20 or 25 years. So you sign a 10-year lease with 3 5-year options, or a 15-year lease with 2 10-year. You still, theoretically, you're going to pay rent for 25 years. I'd rather pay the rent to myself. I mean, it's an expense that you're going to pay no matter what. You're still writing a check every month to use the space, but I'd rather be building equity in the asset, especially as it, moves up in the equity value. So if that would probably be the one thing that I would have figured out earlier on. Sometimes that's feasible, sometimes it's not, but any entrepreneur that's planning on doing that for a while, real estate's never a bad decision, ever.
I agree 100%. When you say that you'd rather write a check to yourself, is WashWorld buying the buildings, or do you have another entity buying the buildings and then WashWorld's paying rent? How are you structuring that?
Yeah, great question. So back to having a good attorney, I think having a good tax accountant, I'm probably as on board equally, if not higher, to make sure that you're structuring that to not only protect yourself from a liability standpoint, but how can you operate those businesses in a certain way to limit tax liability and provide, for yourself and your family. So our structure is, so first, stores 1 through 3 are leased. This store that we're building now, we are leasing it. We signed a 15-year lease with 2 5-year options, but we have the option to purchase at the end of year 4. We did that for a couple strategic reasons. But yeah, our whole goal, this store, including build out and equipment, is probably going to cost us somewhere between $1.6 and $1.8 million. But our whole goal is to buy that building at the end of year 4. So moving forward, we're going to just try to buy buildings outright. We proposed what we thought was a crazy idea. We didn't think the landlord would go for it, but he said okay. But it allows us to keep the little cash bubble that we have in case another building comes up for sale that we can buy in the next 12 to 18 months. So we kept some dry powder. We can continue to move this store knowing that in 4 years we're going to buy that building, but we still have a bullet in the gun to fire if we happen to come across
it. Yeah, keeping your options open.
Yeah.
And you're dumping equity into the buildings. Now when you go to finance it, it's going to look so much more appealing.
Correct. And, we're leasing I didn't want the bottom floor, but by leasing the entire space, and we have control of the space for 25 years, well, at the end of year 4, there's 21 years left on that lease. We basically set the market of what we're going to pay for it in 4 years in today's dollars. So we're actually getting a little bit of a discount, in my opinion. And it allows us to get ahead of paying off some of those tenant improvements and the equipment loan for that store. So it's kind of it's a big win for us. I would not be opposed moving forward. If we can find people that would say, okay, fine, we'll give you an option to buy at the end of year 4. I'd probably do that every time, because we could probably grow quicker because it's a lesser cash outlay up front, and we could build more stores. And as our other stores are paying off their debt and freeing up more and more cash flow, having a cash bucket to say, okay, now it's time to buy this building. We got to come up with 25% of the cost of the building to get traditional financing because of the snowball effect and having all these revenue centers. That would be feasible. So I would not be opposed to that. So being flexible and being creative, it kind of came out of left field, but I'm fairly confident it'll work out very, very well for us.
Creative financing is something that's super important, and whether you're buying, real estate or you're buying an existing business,
Yeah.
that a lot of people don't think about. Like, I'll have people approach me and they'll be like, well, I can't get this business because I have to get financing through the bank and the bank won't finance it. And like you said, you made a crazy offer thinking they wouldn't accept it. But that's how I've purchased most of the businesses or real estate that I've done, is by essentially owner finance for a period of time.
Correct.
That gives me that freedom to either, it gives me a bunch of options. And then whenever it comes time to finance that, now I have equity in it. I don't have to come up with as much money maybe, or like, whatever the case is for that specific thing. But I don't think people know that exists. And then they're afraid to like offend somebody. I always try and tell them, like, make sure when you're making an offer that they're feeling protected and you're feeling protected.
Correct.
And as long as that's happening, nothing's off the table.
Correct. And the worst thing they can say is no. I mean, big deal. No harm, no foul. Like, we originally thought they wanted to buy it, and our real estate agent's like, hey, what if we tried to lease it for a few years and then you buy it? And I'm like, okay, you think they'll do it? He goes, I don't know. Let's try. And it ended up working out. So, I think being creative, being flexible, the biggest thing that I've seen and heard is people over leverage. And I think that's, I've heard some stories throughout the laundromat industry that people have gone from 1 to 40 stores in 3 years. When you're that far leveraged, you only need one negative quarter or one negative 6-month period. You can lose everything. Whereas if you're a little more solidified, you can weather some peaks and valleys a lot easier. So that's my kind of word to the wiser, is that, an entrepreneur gets into this new business. It doesn't matter how successful you are. Stay within your means and make sure that if you do have a valley of a certain amount of time, that you can weather that, because it's not only your life, it's your family's life, your employees, all that stuff. And, yes, we want to grow, but we didn't grow just for the sake of growing.
That's sound advice for sure. I don't think there's enough people talking about it. It's not, there's nothing, I guess, nothing sexy or appealing about safety. Like, it's not cute. But it's the reality. Like, if more people were talking about this stuff, then maybe entrepreneurs would have a better shot, because you get over leveraged, and like you said, one little blip in the radar and everything can go away just that quick. It's a tough lesson to learn.
Yeah, and most businesses that I've seen and read about, like, they're successful in the first 3, 6, 9 months, because it's the new shiny thing. It's keeping those customers and staying that same level of success over time. That's the hard part. That's why in years 2, 3, 4, that's when you see a lot of small businesses fail, unfortunately. You're not the bright, shiny thing anymore.
100%. Well, I appreciate all the time that you're giving us today. I know you're busy, and coming in, I think you've given a lot of valuable information, and I appreciate that. One of the things that we do when we do an intake form for our clients, one of the pieces that I really push on, getting as much detail as possible from the potential clients that we're dealing with, is defining success. Because I feel like until you know what success means to you, then your goals can be all over the place and you don't have a real path forward. How can you define success outside of just saying, wealth or sustainability, or what does success mean to you today?
Couple different things. Success is, when I fly back to Portland, I tell our employees, my main message to them is one thing, is that I want them to know that they have a home here, even though it's a laundromat. Not a lot of career paths within the laundromat industry, but everybody can stay as long as they want. We expect 3 things. You protect the brand name, you protect our team, and you protect the customer experience. Outside of that, unless you're stealing money from me, and I'm good with everything. Like, focus on the goal. And we have not had anybody turn over in 3 stores in over 12 months in a retail driven location. tell our general manager, Michelle, all the time, I'm like, you are doing the right things. So whatever we're doing, we're going to continue on that path. I want to be known as not only a successful brand name in the Portland market, but I also want to be known as a community partner. And when we get to that point, I will feel like we've achieved something that the laundromat industry is not known for at all. I've mentioned getting to store number 10. That's a goal that me and the two business partners have from a financial perspective, or a, amount of stores. Like we've always said, hey, can you imagine when we get to 10 stores? So success is that I sleep at night. I'm proud of what we're doing. I'm confident that we're doing the right things, and we're providing for not only our customers, but our employees as well. So I guess that's my long-winded answer.
I like it. And on that note, I think we can wrap it up, unless there's something that people need to know about, or you want to plug anything about your stores or your new locations, anything like that.
No, I appreciate the opportunity. I'm excited to see where this new venture of yours goes. So please keep me in the loop, and I'm available anytime. You know how to get a hold of me. And, if anybody ever has any questions, please feel free to pass them on. Thanks for the opportunity.
I appreciate that. And we look forward to working with you. I've talked about you a little bit on our channel, and talked about your business a little bit, as you are a new customer for us. So we're excited about that opportunity, and we're looking forward to see where it goes.
Yeah, I appreciate it. Thanks again.
Thanks.
Thanks a lot.